Welcome, all you crazy nuts. Come on. It is good to have you here tonight. We're going to be talking about great chord moves in the key of E. We've pushed this off so much, and finally it's now time for us to get to it. There's a PDF that goes along with tonight. You can download that at the link in the YouTube description down below, as well as we've got it pinned in the chat. So if you want to take a moment to download that, that would be helpful. We're going to be talking about great chord moves in the key of E. We've done C, we've done G, we've done D, we've done A. Now we are to our last one, great chord moves in the key of E. We're also going to be talking about, if we have time, how to dial up an amp for an acoustic guitar, as well as, if we still have time after that, then I wanted to also talk about how to, when you're playing, how to position your music, where you should be positioning your music. So to get us started off with, I thought I would play something in E. I'm trying to think of songs in the E, so I thought I would do this one. There you go. A little bit of Change the World by our good friend Gordon Kennedy and Tommy Sims, Wayne Kirkpatrick, made famous by Eric Clapton. He was the one that won the Grammy for Song of the Year on that song. Well, before we get into the key of E, hey, I want to talk to you about something. This morning, I had a good teacher moment, a wonderful teacher moment. You know, I used to teach at a university, Trevecca University here in Nashville, and taught there for many years and had lots of wonderful students that came by. And there was a wonderful student that was incoming as a freshman, but he wanted to take lessons during the summer before he got registered in the fall. He's the only student I ever had that ever did that. And so I gave him lessons over the summer. He came in the fall as a guitar major and went through the whole program with us, and I had him for many of those years there. And several of those summers he came and took lessons during the summertime. So while everybody else was cooling it, taking it easy over the summer, he was in the practice room trying to get better. And Landon was his name, Landon. And Landon wasn't really a naturally gifted player in that sense. You know, he wasn't like a Mozart. Some players come in and they're just kind of naturally gifted. But then you also have the other side, which are the Beethovens, which are just guys that work at it and know what they want to do and do that. So he was more on the Beethoven side of things. He just came in and just worked at it and got really good. And by the time he graduated, he was really a phenomenal player. I saw Landon, my old student, this morning on the Today Show. He was playing backup acoustic guitar, for Tom Hanks' son, Chet Hanks, who has a country band. And they were on the Today Show this morning with Jenna Bush Hager and all sorts of things. And there's old Landon, my student from a couple of years back, playing on the Today Show. So I had a proud teacher moment there with Landon. And I always remember he just really worked at it. He knew what he wanted to do and had graduated and then went right into playing professional guitar here in Nashville. Not an easy feat, but Landon did it. And so proud of Landon. Been proud of Landon all day long. All right, if you guys are ready, let's get into the key of E and go ahead and start the lesson. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. Thank you for joining us on this lesson on great chord moves in the key of E. There is a PDF that goes along with this lesson. Please make sure to download that. The link is in the YouTube description down below. This is part of a larger series that we have already done on chords in the key of C and D and A and G, and now we are to the last of our 5, our caged keys, and that is the key of E on guitar. So go ahead and get that PDF out in front of you, and let's get started. Let me just kind of play a little bit in E, kind of get our ear into the key of E a little bit. There we go. E, what a great key on guitar. Let's take a look at some of the ways on page 1. These are little vamps that you can do in the key of E. Chord moves, sometimes you're going to have to stay on a chord for a long period of time. And so these little moves are very characteristic in the key of E. I put as many of them as I could think down here. Let's take a look at the first one. Easiest one, if I'm just needing to hang out in the key of E, I'm going to go from an E to maybe an E sus. A good way to just kill time in the key of E, maybe between verses or as an intro or something like that. Let's see if we can do a little bit more with that. Take a look at the next one. Maybe I can do from an E to this move. Third finger's on the C sharp, pinky is on the F sharp there at the 4th string, 4th fret. First finger is on the 3rd string at the 2nd fret. So you end up with this sort of a shape. So we're going from an E to this. Listen how that sounds. great little, very sweet sounding way of extending an E chord out. Take a look at the next one. So we're going to take this move, and I'm going to move it up just 2 frets. So I end up with a B6th with an E in the bass, and let's hear how that sounds. Another way to extend that out, and it's just the same chord. I need to make sure and keep the first string, the 6th, the 2nd, and the 1st are all just ringing through open. Take a look at the next one, page 2. If I wanted something that was a little more, maybe for a ballad or something like that, instead of going to this move, I'm going to switch my 3rd finger with my 2nd, and I get an A minor 6th with an E in the bass. And that gives me kind of a bittersweet, sort of a melancholy sound. Let me play it for you. Can you hear how that minor 6th tone, that C and that F sharp together, really kind of gives that pull, that longing? That chord change, you'll hear that specific chord change in a lot of Christmas songs and a lot of Disney songs, things where they're trying to pull at your emotions. You'll hear that minor 4 sort of chord that they're going to. Take a look at the next one. If I wanted to extend that out, I can take this and move it up 2 frets just like I did the other one. And you end up with this progression. What if I just move through them faster? Sounds different than the other one that we did. What do we have next? If I wanted to do, key of E is great. If I wanted to do something that's a little Spanish sounding, a little Mexican flair to it, I take this shape of the E chord and I just scoot it up a half step. So I'm still have it's the exact same shape, and I'm just going to scoot it up a half step. Maybe I can even scoot it up 2 more. Back down 2, then back down to E. Sounds very, very Spanish sounding. Take a look at the next one. What are we on? The 4th one on page 2 there. Here's some different things. If I'm maybe on an electric and I wanted to do a power voicing, an E5, and just take that 2nd finger off. I'm muting down here. What if I wanted to do it more in the mid-range? So now I'm going to put the E on the 5th string at the 7th fret, play the power chord here, and then when it gets to that 2nd one, I'm just going to bar my 1st finger. A great way, if you're playing electric, if you're doing something a little bit more aggressive, you can use that progression. Well, we've done it on the low, we've done it on the mid. Can I do it on the higher ones? Well, sure. If I do a power chord with an E, a B, and an E, remember a power chord is just roots and fifths. So we have a root, we have a 5th, we have the root again. And then I'm just going to take my 3rd finger off and bar that 1st finger, and I end up with it a little bit higher. A great little option for you to play. What do we have next? Oh, here's a pretty one. You can go from an E up here. We're going to do this power chord E up here at the 7th position. And then I'm just going to take my pinky off and put my 2nd finger on. Maybe I can bar that 1st finger again. I end up with this. And so listen to this. This is good for if I'm doing sort of an aggressive strumming thing and I want it to sound pretty major. I'll do something like this. I'll do it again. Do it again. A great way to do it. Take a look at the next page. We are on page, what is that, page 3 now. If I wanted to do a power chord even higher, now I'm doing not root 5th, I'm doing 5th root. So this is the B, second finger on the E, high pinky on that first string at the 7th fret, and so it's still a power chord, but I'm not starting on the root, I'm starting on the 5th. So if I changed it to that, kind of make it an E sus, put my third finger underneath there. Hey, it's just like a D sus sort of a shape there, but we're up here at E. And then I did a little triad there and went back. Listen to how that sounds. If I did a little muting. Good ways to hang out on a key of E. So we've gone through what, 6, 7, 8 of these already? Here's another option. If I'm going from an E, I can use this triad and maybe then go to this triad of an A. So we end up with, maybe I can even add this low G sharp to it. I can even add my pinky down here on the 12th fret, and I get the octave there. So what have I given you? About 8 or 9 options for instead of just doing a regular old E. Nothing is wrong with that E, but if you can do a few of these chord moves in there, it really starts to sound great on the instrument. Take a look at the next one. Page 3. All right, so let's go through the main chords in the key of E and what type of voicings we can use to make the instrument sound its best. Well, in E, you know, the one chord, of course, would be an E. So everybody's going to be playing that first one. But some other options you can play are to add your pinky, stretch that hand out and add that pinky there, and you get an E2. Just gives it a little bit more color. I could play an E with a G sharp in the bass. Take a look at the next one. I put my second finger on the G sharp, first finger stretching way back on this E. That's a good option if I maybe wanted to go from a... Just give some different movement to the voicing. Well, that stretch is kind of big. What if I wanted to make it an E2, so I'm just going to do second finger, third finger, fourth finger there at the 4th position, and the open E and open B underneath it. I'm muting out that 5th string. What makes an E chord sound great is these open strings. The E and the B are still open underneath it. So if I can keep those going through the voicings, it really sounds great. E2 with a G sharp. We've already done this E power chord, this E5 right here. I'm playing all 6 strings. We've got these wonderful things ringing. What if I did an E2? If I'm doing a ballad, something that's a little bit softer, more gentle. This E2 right there. And then we already talked about this E5 right there. So we have, what, 8 different ways you can play an E there? And each one of them has a unique voicing on the instrument, and yet they're all E's. Take a look at the next one. On the 2 chord in the key of E, that would be an F sharp minor. Well, a 6-string bar chord, it's just not going to sound that great on a guitar, especially acoustic guitar. So what can we do? Well, we can change the voicing around. At least I can do is take my pinky off and make that an F sharp minor 7th, but I still have that big bar, which is hard to play, and it doesn't sound particularly good on the instrument. If I switch my fingers around to the second finger on the F sharp, third finger on the E, pinky on the A, all there at the second fret, I end up, and leave everything else open, I end up with an F sharp minor 11th, one of my favorite chords in the key of E. Hear how just, otherwise that progression would be E, F sharp minor, E, which is fine, but if I can add that open strings ring, it just creates a little bit more of a normal sound, a little bit more of a connected sound. Now if I'm way up on the neck, I can play an F sharp minor 7th way up here. Again, still a bar chord, F sharp minor 11th right there. That's another option for you as well. If we were doing something down the open position, I generally like to substitute that F sharp minor 11th in for that anything F sharp minor there. It'll fit in just fine. Now the 3 chord is going to be a G sharp minor. Again, a bar chord. Not much we can do. We can take the finger off, make it a G sharp minor 7th. Oh, maybe I can make a minor 11th. Again, I don't have the luxury of open strings. Maybe I can even bar that first finger. Another way of playing G sharp minor 11th. A little bit of a lesser used chord in the key of E. Take a look at the next one. Next page, page 4. An A chord. That's the 4 chord. Well, the 3 main pillars of chords in any key are going to be the 1, the 4, and the 5. So here's another important one that we've got a lot of different options on this one. An A, you can play this, or you can do, a bar, either way. And that's what everybody's going to be doing. But another good option is I just take my pinky off, and I'm left with an A2 with my second and third finger there on the 4th and 3rd strings. Oh, here's one. If I take this E shape and move it up here to the fifth position, but I don't bar it, I just leave the bottom 2 strings open. A very wonderful form, but you don't think to just shift that position up. What's another one? I could do maybe an A major 9th. Just move your second finger here on the 4th string, first finger on the 3rd string. Beautiful A major 9th. Now remember that major 7th, major 9th, all of that works because we're on the 4 chord, which is a major 7th chord. So if I'm in a E, sounds beautiful. What if another way to play an A major 9th is I come up here with my second, third finger, just like I was down here, and put it up here at the 6th fret, and then I get a really pretty A major 9th sound. Oh, what's something else we could do? As long as I'm up here, I could be at the 7th position, and do my bar and do an A2 up here. That's a possibility. What do we have next? The last one there. Oh, this is just a fun one. An A2, there's an A2, but I'm going to switch my fingers around, put my pinky over here, and catch that C sharp in the bass. When I put the 3rd in the bass like that, it sounds very sweet. Back to an E. And then to this A with a C sharp. You hear how that 3rd in the bass really changes the sound of that chord. Take a look at the next one. Now this is the B chord. This is the 5 chord, another one of our main pillars. We can do all kinds of things, but remember the 5 is going to be a dominant 7th type chord. So what do we have? Ugh, a B like that, yucky to play. Some guys will just do that. You have to remember to not play that first string if you're going to bar it. Oh, an open way to play it would be a B7th. And that's cool. What if I wanted to sound a little bit jazzier, I just move that pinky up a string to the 2nd string, and I have a B 9th. B 9th. If I wanted to sound a little bit more bluesy, I could slip that pinky out a fret, kind B7 sharp 9. Very common chord in blues is that B7 sharp 9. So here's the 9, just think about it. Here's the 9, sharp 9 would be there, flat 9 would be there. If I sound a little bit more jazzy, I could put the flat 9 in it. Oh, we already did the B sus a little bit earlier. Here's an easy one, just a first finger bar at the 2nd fret. I have a B11th, so if I'm playing my chord progression, works perfect over that B. What's another thing? Oh, remember how we did our A like this? If I do up 2 frets, I get a really fun sounding, kind of a B suspended sort of a sound. Hear how that just gives a wonderful clash in the tonality there. If I'm playing more jazz, so maybe I could do an A with a B in the bass. That one's a good one to lay in there if something sounds a little bit more jazzy, or maybe R&B. All right, take a look at the next one. The last one of our chords in the key of E would be the 6 minor, which would be a C sharp minor. Well, again, we're left with an ugly bar chord. Well, let's see what we can do with that. If I take my pinky off, I get a C sharp minor 7th. But here's, if I just do a power chord and leave the 2 strings open underneath it, I still have a C sharp minor 7th. I'm just not barring it. So if you're struggling for a C sharp minor 7th, just use a power chord and open strings underneath it. It'll work just fine. If I'm doing something a little bit more jazzy, maybe I could do a C sharp minor 9th. If I want to give it a little clash, maybe I can open that first string up too. That one's a little bit of a stretch with that first finger coming back to the 2nd fret. Oh, here's a good one. Remember how we did our F sharp minor 11th down here? Just move that same shape up here to the 9th fret, way up here to the 9th fret. And I've got a C sharp minor 7th again. So if I put these voicings that use common tones, in this situation we're having an open E and an open B a lot in the key of E, I end up with some common shapes. So look at this. I've got an E2. I've got an F sharp minor 11th. If I just scoot that form up 2 frets, I get an A2 or an E2 with a G sharp in the bass. An A2. Maybe I could do my inversion there with the C sharp. B suspended. C sharp minor 7th. Maybe I could even do that same shape of the A and move it up here to a B7 or a B suspended. Keep those open strings ringing. So I've given you wonderful color options for all the chords in the key of E. So let's put these in some progressions. Take a look at the bottom of page 4 there. We've got a 1 to a 6 minor to a 4 to a 5. So everybody else is going to be going. Which is fine, and a lot of players play it that way, but there are some more, we can use some different voices that'll give the common tones in there. So let's employ some of these common tone voicings. I'm going to change the E to an E2, the C sharp minor to a C sharp minor 7, the A to an A2, then I'm going to do a B suspended, and then look, I'm just going to take my 3rd and 4th finger and move them down a string. And mute out that 4th string. So let's see what that sounds like. A great way to play, a very melodic way to play a progression in the key of E. Take a look at the next page. What if I did some, start with an E, the 2 of the G sharp. Maybe the progression was like a... Well, I could turn that into this. I'll do it again. Do you hear how the common tones between all those chords really make that progression come alive and sounds like it all fits together? Oh, here's another option. We talked about this in some of the other keys. I can go up to this shape here, and a lot of times I can just do what's called a drone, where I just am moving around just the roots and the fifths. So I end up with a pattern. I even wrote out the tab there for you. Two, chicka three, chicka four, and just a little drone. I'm just taking my second finger off and on to the first finger bar. And once you get the finger pattern of it right, I put the finger numbers in there as well for you to work on. That's a great little move in the key of E. Take a look at the next one. Now let's get to some inversions. I just put some inversions, common inversions, on the 1, the 4, the 5 in the key of E. So we have a E with a G sharp in the bass. I'm muting out that 5th string. A, and then I'm going to do a 3rd finger with that C sharp there. B, same shape there as the A, and then an E to assess to an E. So let's hear how that sounds. If I add some of these other common tone ones, I even get away from some of the bars. It sounds like the second example. 2, 3, 4. I'll do that one again. Just moving triads there. Remember we did that triads course way back when? You can look that out on our YouTube channel. It's all free there. You can get a lot of mileage out of these triads as well. Let me talk you through a couple of quick walk-ups and walk-downs, and then we'll be done. All right, we're going to go take a look at the next page. You're going to go between 1 and 4, an E and an A a lot. So what's an easy way that we can walk up between those instead of just going from an E to an A? We can walk up. So here's a simple walk-up. I've got the E, and then I'm just doing an F sharp and an A, slide it up 2 frets, and then I get to the A, and then I walk up down. If I needed to, if it's in 4/4 time, I need to stretch it a little bit more, maybe I could put a little chord in between. Easy way to go between 1 and 4 in the key of E. What's the next one? Oh, I've got a B7 here. B7 to an E. Another one to go from a B if you want to do the walking is I could do tenths. I didn't write this one down, but this would be. Great way to do it. Remember, also an E, I can hammer on that second finger. Remember old Willie Nelson's Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain? Same move right there. Great thing that you knew in the key of E. I thought I would finish it up and give you 2 of my favorite licks in the key of E. One of them, this first one, I learned from the great Tom Bresh. I saw him play this lick one time. We're going to come up here with our 2nd and 3rd finger up here at the 4th fret, and on the 6th and 3rd string, and I'm going to hit those, and then the open and E and B beneath him. And then I slide it down a half step, down another half step, and then an E. Or whatever variation you want to use. Take a look at the next one. Another variation on that is I could do it up here at the top. Instead of putting the low G sharp, I'm going to put the G sharp on the top and play basically the same lick. Down a fret, down a fret, and then a resolve. There you go. There are some great chord moves in the key of E. Take it, grab what you can from it, and learn in the other keys as well. Remember, if you're in the key of E, I can also put a capo on maybe the 1st, the 2nd, or 3rd fret, and I can get all of those as well. Here we go. All right, take a look at all of these and learn all you can. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. We'll see you next time. Great. I'm so glad I got through that. Hey, this has been a great series. We've been working on that about one a month ever since January. So I'm kind of glad we made all the way through that. Wonderful. If you can learn those, man, you could really snap up your playing. If they're all on YouTube, all the PDFs, and we've got a whole little playlist for them as well. I want to talk for a minute. I had a question someone was asking about how to dial in an amp when you're playing an acoustic. Well, let's talk about that for a second. I'm coming acoustically to you through this mic, so I'm not working with an amp right now, but let me just tell you what I do. First of all, there are acoustic guitar amps, and then there are electric guitar amps. Now, I can plug my guitar into either, and it's going to work. It's just an amp is kind of designed more for acoustic frequencies, and electric amps are designed more for electric frequencies. So while it's not going to damage anything if you plug one into the other, it is not going to sound its best. So if you have an acoustic amp, I know Fishman's got some great acoustic amps. I've got a little one down here by Hendrickson that I love. And there's some Udos putting out some great acoustic amps. There's some great amps out there for acoustic instruments. Didn't used to be that way. Just only used to be electric amps. But now we have acoustic amps in there. If I'm trying to dial in an acoustic amp, of course you have to have a pickup in your guitar. But here's what I do. I generally boost up the bass just a little bit. First of all, I put it flat, just everything up at 12 o'clock, and then I see what I'm dealing with there, what it sounds like. Usually, as far as what they usually have a volume, a bass, mid, and treble. Sometimes there's a gain at the beginning of that, and then a volume at the end. And sometimes there's an EQ and a reverb or something like that in there. But usually you don't have too much choice on the EQ. It's usually just kind of bass, mid, and treble. Usually what I do is I raise the bass just a little bit. I take the mid-range down about 5%. So I put the bass up to about 1 o'clock. I move the middle down to about 11. And then I season the upper range to taste, to how it sounds. Now, these piezo pickups tend to be very high, mid, heavy, and so I want to get that harshness out, so that's where I start to lower the mid a little bit. Sometimes if you have a high mid, it's really more the high mid frequencies that are the ones that need to go. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes depending on where the point is on their EQ dial, you might need to use the upper high or treble, and then mix that with the mid a little bit and bring those back a little bit. Sometimes there's even a higher one that's called presence. And the presence, that's great. That's like 8K and above. And so that gives kind of the sparkle in the sound. So I generally goose that one up a little bit. So here's what I generally do. I'll put the bass up 1 notch, put the mids down 1 notch. I'll leave the highs where they are, but usually those are going to go down one notch as well. And then I put the presence, the really high ones, up a notch. And that's usually kind of my generic one, generic start. On my guitar, sometimes you'll have an EQ on your guitar here. I like to keep, if there's a volume there, I like to keep the volume there maybe at about an 8. If I know I'm going to really be needing that volume. Sometimes if I know I'm not going to be needing the volume, I'm just going to be playing at one volume, I'll put it at 10. But you don't want to put it at 4 or 2 or something like that, because then it really doesn't matter what your amp is doing, because your guitar isn't sending him enough signal. So you want the guitar to send the amp enough signal, first of all. So he should definitely be somewhere between 5 and 8. Sometimes at 10. If I know I'm not going to change anything, I'm just going to put it at 10 and then dial everything else with the amp. A lot of times there's a pickup in here that has an active pickup that requires a battery. So don't forget your battery changing. If you plug this in and it just sounds like garbage, check your battery. If you haven't changed your battery in a while, those things just go dead. Also, if you leave your guitar plugged in, don't do that. After you're done playing through the amp, unplug it, because as long as it's plugged in, that battery is draining. So unplug your guitar so you can keep your battery as fresh as it can be, and change those out every now and then. I usually try and change them out about every 6 months, because they're just going to go dead after a while. There you go. So those Fishman loud boxes Randy is mentioning, those are great. I love those. Those are great. Yeah, I love those amps. Neil is saying that as well, those loud box ones. And there's smaller ones and there's larger ones, but those are great for doing. So that's what I do with an acoustic. Now, feedback. If you don't want your amp kind of right by your guitar and definitely not aiming back at it, because it's going to feed back. You're going to get kind of a loop inside of this box here, and that's going to start giving you problems. You can buy a little rubber thing, a feedback buster they used to call them, and if I'm doing a live event where I know I'm going to be in a very loud situation, I'll just get a little rubber plug for this, a feedback buster, and then the sound is still going through my piezo pickups, but it just eliminates a lot of it from getting into the body, which is going to cause it to feedback. All right, I want to talk about one more thing here too, how to position your music. That may seem like a silly thing when you're practicing, but it's actually quite important. Here's the problem that a lot of folks get into. They've got their guitar, and they're going to put their music somewhere, maybe up on a stand, or maybe it's over here, or something like that. So they're constantly, you're going to need to look at your neck every now and then. But then they're looking at the music, and then they got to look at their neck, and they got to look back at their music. And you've got all of this switching back and forth. That's a problem. What I like to do is have my music right here, so that as I'm looking at my neck, my music is right there past it. So that way I don't have to turn my head back and forth. I've got my music right here. And it's right there, and so when I need to glance at my neck, I'm right there, and then I just glance right about 8 inches past it, and there's my music. So that's a good place to have your music stand when you're practicing. Think of just the ergonomics of things. I know a lot of times we'll have it in front of us, and that's great. Front is great too if you're never going to look at your hand. But if you find that you need to look at your hand for various things, of which we all do, then just scoot that stand over a little bit and angle it right here to where it is just off of your sight line so I'm looking down, I'm seeing my neck, I can look at my neck and my fingers when I need to, and then just right past it is the music. That is a good way to have your music stand to avoid this back and forth. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to show that to you and see if you could help. That would help you as you're in your practice space to do that. Okay. Oh, here's one. Here's a good trick in the key of E. I didn't even think about this one. A good way to end is to do something like this. Sorry, let's see. You put your third finger here on the second string at the fifth fret, which is the root. Then I'm going to put my second finger on the fifth string at the same fret. And then I'm going to put my first finger on the third string at the fourth fret. So I've made this shape. And then I'm just going to move these two down. But I've got to, in order to do that, I've got to put my pinky here. And then I move these down one more time. And then if you're really, you could stretch it down if you want to, or you can just go to the E. A great little move in the key of E. That little trick works on any key. Just put your third finger, start with your third finger on the root of whatever key you're in. Let's say I'm going to be in the key of G, and I can do that same little lick. There you go. All right. All right. I've been recording hymns for the last 2 weeks, trying to get all the videos of all the arrangements that I've done. So I came across a pretty one that I haven't done in a while. And so I thought I would close out the show with this. This is called "'Tis So Sweet." There you go. Thank you to all that put on this lesson. My wonderful wife, who is producing everything and giving all the camera shots and all that sort of stuff. Thank you, Diane, for being our moderator with all of that. Thank you for those of you that have given and have supported the work that we do here. We will, I don't think we'll be having a live lesson next week. I'll have to look at the calendar and see if we can pull one off there. I know the middle week of July I'm going to be teaching a teacher training to music educators from across the country, teaching them how to play guitar in 1 week. Actually, 4 days. We're just doing a Monday through Thursday thing. So with the Teaching Guitar Workshops, a wonderful organization I've done many workshops for. So keep up the great work in your learning. Thank you to those of you who have given on this and in PayPal. All of it helps. And check out these resources, and we will see you guys next time.